Hello and welcome to more talk about Stoicism, and we're going over the Meditations by the Emperor Marcus Aurelius. We've landed in book 12, and I wanted to talk to you today about section 29. It's a complicated one, but intuitively I find this a very appealing one. I always like this. The salvation of life lies in seeing each object in its essence and its entirety, discerning both the material and the causal, in applying one's whole soul to doing right and speaking the truth. There remains only the enjoyment of living a linked succession of good deeds, with not the slightest gap between them. What we have here is, I think, two things. One is the exaltation of virtue. We've discussed this many times. The most important thing in Stoicism is virtue, being virtuous, doing the right thing. And what Marcus Aurelius is saying here, ideally, if you do the right thing all the time, you have this succession of doing the right thing, and then you will lead a very happy life, and I think you will. It's very hard, though, to do the right thing every single time, but strictly speaking, that's what Stoicism demands of us. So it's a hard philosophy to follow in that regard. Now, what I found fascinating, and this one's a little tough to explain exactly what I mean, I think, but that I find interesting is the salvation of life lies in seeing each object in its essence and its entirety, discerning both the material and the causal, in applying one's whole soul to doing right and speaking the truth. While doing right and speaking the truth, of course, that's very virtuous. But my interest today lies in seeing the whole, seeing something in its entirety, seeing something's essence. I think this is something that we often forget. And I try to look at the bigger picture when something happens. For example, I think we've been there. You're stuck behind someone who stops the car right in front of a shop, and someone gets out, and it's annoying because you can't pass. But then sometimes what happens, not always, sometimes what happens is someone comes out, and it turns out that's a person on crutches or something, like someone who has trouble walking at that moment. There will be an initial flash of frustration. Why don't you park over there, etc. But then you can try to move past that. You can try to see that whole situation in its very essence. The essence is someone has trouble walking. This is a very simple example, but I think, and I hope that you know what I mean. You look at the bigger thing, you look at the essence of what is going on there. Very often, we look at things very superficially. We don't give it much thought. We don't devote much attention to it. But the reality is, there's a lot going on. Human beings are creatures of immense complexity. And there is much more going on than we can initially see. And as fair, this is sort of like a meme that floats around on all kinds of social media, but I really like it. When you are dealing with someone, remember that at best you know maybe 10% of what's going on in their lives. If someone is a super close friend, you will know a bit more. With most strangers, you might not know more than 1% of what's going on in their lives. You don't know what they're struggling with, what they're going through, what they've just been through, what has just happened to them. Is that an excuse for people to do whatever the hell they want? No, it is not. Everybody has a responsibility to try and be a good person, do the right thing, be nice, be kind, etc. All these things. But we all know that some days it just don't work like that, does it? Because something is going on. Something does happen. Something has made you upset. To deny that is to deny, I think, part of your humanity. But trying to look for the essence of what's going on, why someone acts the way they act, I think can make a huge difference, can make certain things easier. I was on the highway and there was someone, I was overtaking a car and I was already, as is common in these parts, I was already over the speed limit by a little bit, by what's legally allowed. I come from a country where things are arranged a little differently, but anyway, I was overtaking a car. I was over the speed limit, and there was someone behind me who was tailgating me. I think at some point she was about a meter away from my car, very close. Kept pushing. Now bear in mind, I'm already doing more than is legally allowed, right? The speed limit. There was a time that would make me very upset. Not so much angry, but I would get very nervous. Like, well, what do you want me to do? Now I'm able to stay much calmer. And there was a flash of annoyance of, why are you doing this? If I suddenly have to brake, your car is inside mine. There's no way you're able to brake. She was so close. Then she passed. I kind of looked. She kind of looked at me. And I thought, what is going on here? I don't understand. But then I also realized I don't really know what is going on in this person's life. Is it an excuse? No, it's not. It's not an excuse for doing what she did. But trying to look at it this way, she may not have had a reason at all. She may just want to go really fast. Who cares? But trying to look at the essence of things, the essence of her being, made it easier. Okay, listen, I passed. Go ahead. Go ahead. And that, I think, pardon me, can make a huge difference. Having that awareness of, I don't know what's going on in this person's life. Maybe she has to get home really quickly because a family member has fallen ill. I don't know. I don't know that. Careful with this, because it's not meant to be an excuse for everyone to do whatever the hell they want to do. But if you can do it within reason, even if that is for you to make the behavior of others a little bit more bearable, that can be, I think, helpful, within reason. If someone is beating you up, it's probably not helpful to think, well, maybe they just had a bad day at work. Okay, come on, like that's not what I'm saying. But it's accepting this in the smaller situations, right? The smaller situations of annoyance, unpleasantness. Accepting that there might be something going on that you have no way of knowing. You don't know what's going on in that person's life. I think it leads to more compassion. And you could be mistaken. And there could be nothing going on. And it could be absolutely, completely inappropriate what they're doing and why they're doing it. But again, sometimes I think it can be a little helpful to look at things from that perspective. I simply don't know what their story is, what's going on. I don't know. So we can make allowance for that by trying to look at someone's essence, looking at the bigger picture, not the small facet of what's going on, but the bigger picture. And that's again what we typically ignore. We look at our tiny little corner, not just in the universe but on Earth, our little things, the little things that we do. But there's a lot more around there, surrounding us. And by looking at that, trying to look at that, the bigger picture, the core of what's happening, I think things can become a lot easier, nicer, more bearable than they would otherwise be. And that, I think, can be very valuable. So, maybe that's a useful thing for you as well. I found it useful in some situations. In other situations, it also doesn't work. It's a very specific thing. It doesn't always work. As always, and again, worse than that, it's not always appropriate to come up with whole stories about why someone is doing something. It's not always necessary. But again, in simple situations, it can be a thing. In more general situations, I think, not necessarily a situation where someone does something bad to you, but just being aware that you don't know what's going on in someone's life, that, I think, can make you a more virtuous person. Making a little bit of allowance, being a little patient with other people, that can help. It can help a lot, can make a big difference. It's one of those relatively small things that I think can make a big difference in the lives of people. So, there we have it. I hope this was interesting. I hope that I was able to express what I was trying to say. Let me know what you think. how you feel about this technique you can use. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you again next week for more talk about Stoicism. Bye.